Assalamu alaikum, everybody. First of all, a very warm welcome to everybody to our small little discussion today. And a lot of, I think we were looking forward to it. So welcome again from FranklinCovey, Pakistan. Every Women's Day, we at FranklinCovey, Pakistan, we think about what should we talk about this Women's Day. And one of the reasons why we do this is it really aligns with the mission that FranklinCovey has of enabling greatness in people and organizations everywhere where we operate. And that's why we want to talk to people who are actually enabling greatness in their own circles of influence, where they work in, where they are part of the society, part of the organization. And I think today's topic is something where no matter how the environment is, we can make a lot of difference in our own circle of influence. And that's why I wanted to have this discussion. My name is Huma Maqsood. I'm one of the managing partners. I have Mariam. She's wearing the same color clothes. I don't know why.
Today we were supposed to wear pink and take a picture. So that's why I kind of coordinated.
I have Mariam here with me. She's also my partner in managing this mission here in Pakistan. So welcome to you again and to our esteemed panelists. I'm going to just hand over to Mariam to start introducing the panelists.
Thank you. Just a quick thing before I introduce this team panelists. The thing is that this is just by chance that we happen to be women and we happen to be managing partners. Even if we were men, I'm sure we would be having this discussion because it's the need of the day. And looking at the bleak statistics of our country with respect to diversity, equality, and inclusion, if we're talking about cracking the code, we first need to understand what it is. Or हमारा objective ये है कि ये हमारे जितने भी listeners हैं, they should understand what does it even mean? Why are people getting so many awards? Why are people talking about it so much? What is it? I mean, sometimes you have unconscious biases which you're not even aware of, which limit you and limit others. So my dear friends, I would love to introduce our panelists, and I'm going to start with one and then you can do the other. Sarah Hassan. We have Sarah Hassan with us. Hi, Sarah. She is the Senior HR Director, PepsiCo International. She is a very accomplished Senior Director of Human Resources at PepsiCo Pakistan currently, and she has a wealth of experience in her field, over 15 years of experience in HR. And Sarah, if I'm saying anything wrong, please correct me. And she's worked with a number of multinational companies before joining PepsiCo Pakistan. At the moment, so her goal and her role is precisely what we're going to be talking about today. And she is developing and implementing HR strategies that align with the company's business objectives. And I think diversity is going to be one of the key things that she's going to be talking about every single day till she's here, at least, I mean, till everybody gets the understanding of what that means. She strives to inspire, uplift, and empower women, not just internally in PepsiCo, but in communities we operate in, and is an avid advocate of women empowerment. So welcome to the group, Sarah. Over to you. Would you like to introduce Habiba, please?
Yes, and Habiba is here now on the panel. So welcome to Habiba. Habiba से हमारी बातचीत होती रहती है, and she's a very inspiring leader. She is the VP, Senior VP and head of the DEI at Faysal Bank. And she has been actually one of the people who have been leading this huge transformation and cultural change at Faysal Bank, one of the largest bank converting wholly solely into an Islamic bank. So that must have been a great, I would say, a very challenging opportunity for Habiba. She has a vast experience where she has been doing training. She has been heading learning and development. So she has a very vast experience under her belt for even diversity and inclusion. So welcome to Habiba once again. And we have Sana. Maria, would you like to introduce Sana also?
Absolutely. Sana Khurshid, thank you for joining us. She's a lawyer. She's a disability advocate. In fact, she's an activist for equal rights for the differently abled. And she is on a mission to make Pakistan accessible. And she has been the road safety ambassador for Total Paco. She sees and follows no limits when pursuing her career and her passion. She has also tackled the University of London external law program. She is a lawyer and continues her pursuit to advocate for people for equal rights, especially for the people who are differently abled. And she's right now currently wanting to help create an environment which is wheelchair friendly and allows people with disabilities to go on their day-to-day lives without any hindrances. I mean, things that we have sometimes not even considered, and it's such a small thing in certain countries, but here, and not even considering it, can completely limit a lot of people in our country. So thank you, Sana, for doing that. So just to quickly give a quick introduction, because we have our panelists and they are very busy people. And these women, strong women, and of course we don't have a bias for any other gender. It's just that because we right now are focusing on how we are trying to crack this code, and women are progressively becoming a part of many Pakistani organizations. And nonetheless, we still feel discriminated, and there are minorities who still feel that they don't have a voice. Just having diversity, having diverse set of people on the table does not mean that they have a voice. And are they in the decision making or not? So these are certain things that we have to now look at as organizations, that people who are of position, who are making decisions. And talking about discrimination, so if we have these biases, and if we are not aware of these biases, we would like to see what happens in organizations and what these great women are trying to do in their own circle of influence, and how they're trying to bring awareness on these aspects and these issues. So we are going to start with Sarah, huh?
Sure. So yeah, we can start with Sarah, because I wanted to speak less and I wanted our panelists to speak more. So Sarah, what would you want to talk about, how in your organization this initiative of DEI has been inculcated, has become part of the fabric of the organization? So anything special that you are doing, or would you like to our panelists and our audience to know?
So first of all, thank you for setting this up. This is my first meetup with FranklinCovey, and I've been really, Shafaq spoke to me about you some months ago, and I was really excited to be invited and to be considered for the panel. So thank you for that. I think with PepsiCo, and I say this for most things when it comes to PepsiCo related to people, but specifically when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, PepsiCo is probably the best kept secret in the industry. Part of the reason I say is because we're tucked away in Lahore, so we're away from all prying eyes. We are also an organization that has grown from within over the many years we've been around. And because we have such great high levels of engagement, very few people actually leave us and go. So there's very little of PepsiCo that you'll see in other organizations, which is why you don't really get to hear about all the great stuff that's happening here. And the reason why I say diversity is because PepsiCo probably is one of the very few organizations that has actually been able to very successfully and systematically inculcated or enhanced female workforce participation across the value chain. So from our potato farms all the way from our boardroom, all the way to our boardrooms, you will find a relatively higher representation of females in meaningful roles than you would find across the industry. One example of it is, for example, our frontline packers in supply chain in our factories. 30% of our workforce there are female-led. And that is the highest. I mean, the second closest to us is at 6%. So we are not just sort of
way ahead.
Way ahead. We're actually setting the benchmark a little. We are setting the bench as far as workforce participation, particularly in the frontline is concerned. Frontline sales, mein agar aap baat karen, to you'll find that being a challenge for most organizations, because women do not want to go and, they're not able to, in some cases, ride bikes or go to shops and be a part of the retail community. And therefore, that has been a challenge. We've been able to overcome that, and we've got some great initiatives that I can probably talk about in a bit. For example, one of our distributions is completely female-led, and it's in Sialkot. So when you actually go to Sialkot, if you ever if you're ever there and if you're ever up to it, we will set up a visit for you. And I kid you not, the minute you step into that distribution, you can actually tell that it's led by women. 100% end to end, and it's such an inspiring. For those of you who attended WebCon, you probably got to see and hear some of them speak there. So that's the second one. And then when it comes to our leadership team at the boardroom, 50% of the board is represented by women. So our leadership or management team, half of them are female-led positions. And part of that is probably why there is a very high focus, right? And the right tone at the top that we've been able to sort of craft in order to ensure that this becomes a priority at all levels within the organization. So yeah, that's a little bit about us.
Wow, that's some very amazing statistics over here. So I was wondering while you were talking about this is that you have a vast experience of working in South Asia, in Hong Kong. And when you look at those countries and look at the organizations you worked over there, and then you compare here in Pakistan and PepsiCo, what do you think? How would you compare what you're doing right now to those organizations over there, specifically when we talk about inclusive leadership?
So I think kuch cheezon mein we are very different, of course, because, and I kid you not when I say this, 15 years ago when I started working, measuring that the ratio of women in an organization was an issue. Like it was one of those KPIs that was tracked, right? We are still tracking that KPI. We are still not focusing on bigger or deeper challenges around diversity, which is the fact that, hey, firstly, that your pool is is very limited. So basically, Nestle is probably driving their diversity at the expense of Unilevers, and Unilevers is doing it at the expense of another organization, etc. Because humne collectively as a community, we've not been able to enhance female workforce participation. So it's a fundamental challenge, and it's so funny. I hope not, but I wouldn't be surprised 10 years down the road. My successors would be having the same conversations as we are having right now in terms of kyun hum khawat, we will still be tracking the number of women we bring into our workforce every year, which I think is something that the different parts of Asia or East Asia has kind of evolved and moved away from, because female workforce participation is that unke challenges, surprisingly enough, were a little bit more different in some ways, but similar on one. So in this way, they were very different. Obviously, they had enough of a pool of women to actually sort of work with. But unka bhi wo fundamental challenge tha ki when women do come into the workforce, unfortunately, the way our work lives are designed, it is not to align very well with how a female's life evolves over time, right? So her responsibilities change, her roles change in her own personal life, and that is not accommodated very well at the workplace, because your requirements continue. If not, your need at the office or the workplace becomes, even if not the same, it becomes even more while you're needed elsewhere as well.
Absolutely.
And that is why you've seen that there is a massive glass ceiling that they refer to, which they're unable to break, because there comes a point where they either have to leave the workforce, and that kind of sets them back a couple of years, or they're not able to take the same amount of responsibilities as their male counterparts, which is why they're not able to grow enough. And that's basically what we were trying to work with from a challenge point of view, in terms of how do we keep them engaged? How do we continue to increase or maintain the momentum in their career growth, but at the same time, give them opportunities that we would give to their male colleagues, knowing fully well that they had certain other challenges on the work front that they needed to be responsible for. So that is basically the big difference between, or the big difference and the big similarity between where we are at.
Yeah. So, sorry, the fact that you have just shared this with us, I'm sure that you are now working here and closing that gap, because those countries are ahead of us in a lot of these, because they've been there, done that, learned from that, and they've put it in their future plans. So in terms of kind of sensitizing the environment and even maybe the other gender to realize that women are going to go through these phases. They do have these phases that they will go through, and they will be certain things they will be doing and they will not be doing, but that should not be discriminated against them. And
Yeah.
is there anything that you're doing now in PepsiCo that will help? Because that is something that we need to also as a
Like use it as a learning thing.
as a learning curve. Okay, it's not just having women in the workforce, but it's also preparing everybody else to understand that, look, ये चीजें होंगी, बच्चे भी पैदा होंगे, और खवातीन will also have, but they will, and they will go through the different periods of the month, and where they will be, not be able to, but then when they work, they will be like super smarter, and but then what are we doing in terms of explaining that to the people around us?
So we are trying to do a couple of things. One of the things that we are very lucky with, at least in PepsiCo, is that there is a very high awareness of this, because our challenge, while it is also to bring in women, मगर वो challenge हमारा नहीं है, वो पूरे पाकिस्तान का है, तो उसमें हमें पता है कि हम ज़्यादा कुछ कर नहीं सकते. But our bigger challenge, rather than that attracting the right females, was also keeping them within our ecosystem, right? And also we have a couple of things that we're working on. So पहली बात ये कि thankfully, because of COVID, we've been able to normalize work from home, which actually, contrary to popular belief, is more work for women than working from work. Because when you're at the workplace, you kind of cut yourself off from everything else. But when you're physically, and this is for all women out there, I would say that, it's not just the mothers or the wives, but it's also the single females. If they're at home, the daughters, they're like, they're just expected to partake in conversation, if nothing else, because they're physically there, right? So I think that has allowed women to be able to, a lot of women in our organization, to be able to create a certain amount of balance and take away. I think a lot of it is not so much about the fact that we can't make her sakti. A lot of this leaving the workplace and taking a break kind of also comes from this inherent guilt that they're kind of carrying with them. So being able to sort of split more time between work and home kind of helps mitigate that. So that's one. They feel like they're a little bit more in control of their own personal lives. So that's one. The second thing that we're doing from an initiative point of view that we're sort of experimenting with, and this actually was a suggestion that came from one of our male leaders. And so we've put together these groups of male allies within our organization. We've also subscribed to the Male Champions of Change program.
Advocate, allies, resource group. Fantastic.
So these are people who are responsible for watching out and looking out and mentoring and coaching, but not in a formal, but rather in an informal, in a day-to-day way, with their be mentors and support systems to their female colleagues, and really be empathetic. So one of the things that one of these male allies raised is, he and his wife had very important, she worked as well, and they both had an important meeting. They both had a visitor or some sort of a foreign visitor coming, and they both couldn't take time off. And one of them needed to, because somebody needed to sort of attend something at school or something. And he said, for me, it was by default, like, my job is more important than hers. So it's a given that she will have to excuse herself. I cannot, because I'm the primary breadwinner. And he's like, I did that, knowing fully well that I'm a male ally and I shouldn't be thinking like this. I did that. And I took two steps back and I thought, but it's her work is as important to her as mine is. And so with him, we are creating something that I think is used in L'Oreal, but in a different way. And this is a program called In Her Shoes. And through that program, depending on who you are mentoring or supporting or leading within your organization, who's a female, you kind of try and walk in their shoes for a day or a couple of days or a week to be a little bit more empathetic and become real partners at work, which is what we are missing. So that's the second one.
Sarah, just to add, when you tell them to walk in her shoes, just make sure that they take off their shoes first. Because if they try to shove their point of view and they still look at it from their perspective, they might put their foot in their shoes, but they will still not be able to empathize. So they need to first take off their shoes. Continue.
So that's the second one. And the third one that we're doing on our end is primarily for when these women are at work, to try and create a conducive environment, either through our policies or the infrastructure. So we make sure that we've got daycare everywhere. I think one of the things that is very noted about is we have daycare at our potato farms. This was the biggest learning that we had in terms of the fact that, how we feel that certain problems are not relevant or certain issues are not relevant across the value chain. They are. I mean, women who work as who are potato pickers have the same issue of women or as women in our corporate offices where hum bachche kahan chhodein. So all the way from our potato farms to our corporate head offices, we've set up daycare centers. We're also going back to that point you made earlier, which is, we have a couple of days of the month where we are not at our optimal best. And we need to recognize that, and we need to acknowledge it, and we need to facilitate our employees around those days. And we have leaves and other support facilities to manage it. So those are the fewer things. But I think one of the things that for me personally sets PepsiCo apart, and has been a big learning for me because I'm new to the organization, is the fact that we like to do big things. We like to go big when it comes to diversity initiatives, and the impact really comes with the small things that you do consistently that create impact after listening to the people and addressing their real problems versus what you think may be an issue, and let's go solve it for the next 5 years, and not focus on what the small stuff, which really matters in the end. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. And I'm just going to take a direction from you and talk to Habiba about it, because I think they have been part of a huge cultural transformation where a regular bank, the whole of it changed into a very different mindset. And culturally, how did it happen? What were the challenges for men and for women both for this huge cultural change? And how did you sensitize your own people, but also what about the customers? So just wanted to understand from you, and how did you guys take this challenge ahead?
And were you able to remain inclusive? Because that's also a really important aspect from a leadership perspective. Were you as inclusive, or do you think you became more inclusive? So just go ahead, Habiba, over to you.
So right, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. It's my pleasure to be part of this panel, and of course, thank you to FranklinCovey for inviting me over here. So yes, Faysal Bank has just completed on 1st January the largest conversion ever from a retail bank to an Islamic bank globally. And this has been recognized internationally by many agencies as the largest conversion for a bank of this kind and a conversion of this kind. And as you rightly mentioned, Mariam, the biggest challenge, because we started this conversion back in 2015. And at that point in time, our concerns were, how will people know how to do business in this new way? What were the technical reskilling required? What kind of products need to be developed? What kind of customers will be impacted? And it was predicted at that point in time that we will lose about 20% of our conventional customers. And but that's a cost the board of directors and the management was willing to pay for this conversion, because the principal decision was taken at that time. And by the time we came towards 2017 and 18, and only 20 to 25% conversion had been done, and the market started questioning us whether we will be converting, or this is something you just started as a gimmick or something. But I tell you what, those 4 years required planning, organizing, creating the basis for the next 4 years that came, and the conversion started happening like this. And by 2021, we could see we will be converting by end of 2022. So yes, by 2019, we had developed the required products. We had started converting our branches. And at times it was so challenging, especially when developing the Noor credit card, because there was no precedent available in the market. There is no other Islamic banking credit card available in the market. And we didn't want to lose our customers, and we had to find a Sharia solution to it. Of course, keeping in view that it is really Islamic, because the biggest question people ask us today is, of course, whether Islamic bank is really Islamic or not, So yes, and it is, us perspective mein. So when we started developing those products, that happened, although a lot of help came, the help came from Almighty, I tell you. But having said that, those things, I believe those happened far rather easily. What really gave us a challenge started from 2022, when we started to change our culture according to the Islamic banking industry in Pakistan. We started talking about introducing certain dress code policies. We started talking about other things, and the challenge became so clear, the way of working, because if you say although we would say that our Islamic values are cognizant with professional corporate values, but implementation had to come. So the mindset challenge was the biggest challenge. How we operate in that model was the biggest challenge. And yes, our biggest concern was because we are a legacy bank. We have ABN AMRO, we have RBS, we have Prime Bank as part of our legacy banks, and we had customers from all over Pakistan. So we didn't want to lose on to our legacy customers as well. And, so the biggest challenge was for us to make sure that all kinds of customers would stick to us. And then our employees, we were already 17% gender diversity. And I tell you, at that point in time, 18%, that was one of the highest in the banking industry, the entire banking industry, except Standard Chartered Bank. But Standard Chartered is a different footprint. So having said that, the 18% gender diversity, and when we announced and these changes started to happening, the biggest challenge we started to feel that we need to promote diversity and inclusion more, so that our women, they don't feel, because एक ये general conception है Islamic banking में ख़वातीन को progression नहीं मिलती, और ऐसा कहा इसलिए भी जा सकता है, कहा इसलिए भी जा सकता है कि इस्लामिक बैंकिंग इंडस्ट्री में जो 6-7 बैंक्स हैं उसमें आपकी एवरेज परसेंटेज ऑफ जेंडर डाइवर्सिटी इज ओनली 10 to 11%. So the management and I decided at that point in time that we don't want to lose our good talent. These females are our good talent, and we do not want to become part of that bandwagon. And hence we created this diversity and inclusion department at that point in time. And we decided to focus on our gender initiatives to promote our women. And sabse pehle to there was no structure in place in terms of D&I. We started to build that structure. We got our vision approved from the board. We had a lot of support from our board on diversity and inclusion. And that's where we started. We want to promote people from other religions as well, because as again mindset wala issue hai na कि Islamic bank hai तो maybe people from other religions are not allowed to work or are not celebrated us tarah se. So this department was created just so those biases, those unconscious biases, unconscious biases associated all around the Islamic banking industry itself. वैसे भी banking industry overall is not like FMCG industry, FMCG is far ahead of what in Pakistan as compared to what banking industry in Pakistan is doing. And thanks a lot to Ms. Seema Kamil, the State Bank governor, Deputy Governor, State Bank, that she introduced these policies that gave the push to the banking industry. So yes, I believe Islamic banking really played a role in our vision on D&I. The policies from the regulator came last year, but we started working on these things 3 years back. And the impetus for change was Islamic conversion, as opposed to many other people would like to think. We started hiring persons with disability. We hired an entire batch of visually impaired people in the call center, and we installed this infrastructure in the system. And there was no such regulatory requirement at that point in time. So all of these things we started doing just so that people would not feel that. Balki we wanted to promote this more, and we felt that we were in a unique position to position ourselves and do this. So yes, a lot of these still we are a work in progress, but we've only increased our diversity and persons with disabilities and other numbers, and we can share.
So what we're hearing is that because you knew that it might already hold a bias, the fact that we're converting from conventional to Islamic, you were mitigating that bias by being more proactive. And then by setting up a DEI cell is a very proactive approach, so that if there is any bias that is going to be attached to it, and if you lose, say, business, then the whole concept of doing this would be to get more business, not to reduce business. And in the process, also your employees are, if you have employee satisfaction, you have customer satisfaction, you don't want to lose talent, you have loyalty, you don't want to lose that talent who already is holding on to the customers, because loyal customers also equates into
absolutely, and legacy customers.
And that's a great proactive approach that Faysal Bank has taken. I'm sure.
So we saw this Musawat champions on your social media. Does it have something to do with D&I?
Oh yeah, so Musawat champions is an extension of our program known as Kabil program. So Kabil program is the program we run for our persons with disabilities. And we've been able to, alhamdulillah, double our numbers of hiring in every year since the last 3 years. And the idea was that, we should make them productive members of the society. And I'll be honest with you, and I'm not going to mince my words here just for the sake of, sounding. But वो उस वक्त उन्होंने batch रखा था कि let's do some social good for the first batch, तो इसलिए रखा गया था. And I'm being very honest here. So पहला batch हमने इसलिए रखा था कि जी हम Islamic हो रहे हैं, let's do some social good and make them productive members of the society. And we hired this new manager. He was very good with those people. और उसने फिर वो hiring की कराची blind school से, and then he hired them. But it's been 3 years we've had that batch. अभी मैं सिर्फ उसे एक batch की बात कर रही हूँ, and there is not a single complaint. That cannot happen. There is no record of such things happening, but
This is really
batch
amazing.
there's not even a single customer complaint. And when they talk to the customer doesn't know that he or she is talking to a blind person. वो तो अपने JAWS reader से उनको पूरी अपनी information. There is not a single complaint in 3 years. We've hired this deaf person, and he's now a full-time export officer in our export department. उसको hire किया गया था because yes, we wanted to push the diversity agenda forward. But when then the other person resigned, they didn't hire a replacement because he was doing such a good job. And then I was at a conference in the morning, and there's this, I am so impressed by the business impact and the impact on the lives of these people. So it's a story of when we say na ki DNI impacts your bottom line. I can tell you how much bottom line has been impacted just by, taking these small steps. So Masawa Champions basically is an extension of our Kabil program, where we hire our differently able people, we train them, we give them internships, and whoever can become part of the the bank, we try to. So Masawa Champions, we train our branch staff to treat how should I say it? But people need बराबरी की जो बैंकारी है, चाहे वो खातून हो, चाहे वो किसी भी कोई भी
equality, the E and the DI.
So बराबरी की बैंकारी, चाहे वो अब सिर्फ हमने उसको, although I'm referring to just 2 segments, women and PWTs, because उस वक्त हमने focus सिर्फ इन 2 areas पे करना शुरू किया था. We could not touch on any other thing at that point in time because we were too nascent for anything else, to be honest with you. So हमने 2 चीजों को फोकस करके काम करना शुरू किया था. बट मसावात नाउ टॉक्स अबाउट गिविंग रिस्पेक्ट इक्वली टू एवरीवन. वरना ब्रांच में एक साहब जो बड़े तैयार त्यूर आके आते हैं, उनको प्रोटोकॉल भी ज्यादा मिलता है, उनको चाय भी अच्छी मिलती है, उनको कॉफी भी अच्छी मिलती है, और एक जो बड़ा बेचारा राइडर शाइडर आ रहा होता है उसके साथ. सो ये मसावात चैंपियंस का काम है.
we're very judgmental. हमें as a nation award मिलना चाहिए जजमेंट करने पे. आपको पता है ना, स्नैप जजमेंट्स, और सबसे पहले हम ऊपर से देखते हैं और हम जजमेंट करते हैं. तो ये आप हबीबा, ये तो सालों की प्रैक्टिस है,
सालों का माइंडसेट चेंज करना है.
But the beauty is that the fact that you might have a certain agenda, but with that agenda such beautiful things are happening that if they become a part of your policies now, you can make a difference across the board and intentionally make a difference.
I could actually connect with what Habiba was saying and what Sarah was saying earlier, कि हाँ बड़े projects करने चाहिए, उससे आपको attraction मिलती है, आपको limelight मिलती है. But the bottom line over here is these small things which you are doing consistently and constantly that add on to the bottom line that Habiba explained to us. And that's really, really important, that yes, we should have, we should be able to create that balance between bigger projects and something which is going on consistently and constantly, even though it is a small thing, because
then these projects themselves are a work in progress. ऐसा नहीं है कि आपने मसावात चैंपियन शुरू कर दिया तो सारे ब्रांच में सब चेंज हो जाएंगे. Mindset takes ages. It does not. एक sensitization session या एक मसावात चैंपियन का session does not. It's a consistent accountability to the values, to the behaviors. So we changed our values as well in lines with everything. So khidmat was made part of our core values for the same reason. If you are an Islamic bank and you're talking about equality, you have to serve your internal and external customers both. So the behaviors and we're trying to do this. This is a work in progress, but that's the intention. And we've had success so far, what we've done, alhamdulillah, but we
And
have a
thanks
long
to the
road ahead
state
of
bank,
stuff.
and thanks to the state bank ke unne rakha hai danda. Kyunki somebody just made a comment, Sana, thank you for adding that. If you don't hire women in your branches, I think there's some sort of a penalty that I think a branch has
We
to
don't have
pay.
a man in our panel, Maria.
We do have no, not in a panel, but we have a lot of men here. But state bank, it's all about policies. It comes from the top. If you institutionalize it, then you can become more intentional, and that's why it's easier maybe for multinationals as
I
opposed
think
to.
it made our lives easier when the policy came, because before that it was good to have, and the push that, because mindsets at times does not change until unless you have that push, and that was a much needed push, at least in the banking sector, because it's a regulated industry, and this needed to happen at a regulator level. But what we need to realize is, and I was talking to someone in the morning, is that we should not be doing this just for the sake of regulator ने कहा है मैंने इतने PWD रखने, regulator ने कहा है मैंने इतनी खातून रखनी है. If we are not looking at the impact and why we are doing it, we'll be a lost cause.
So, now this is creating a negative bias as well. And I'm going to throw this to Sana very soon, because it's law, and I'm sure you'll be able to help us on that and understand that. What does the law say about this? Because a lot of bankers now, and a lot of men in the banking sector, because I've been training a lot of banks, they are resentful. Position thi, the man was more able and more competent, but to tick the diversity box, they kept a woman. So how well the organization or the bank or the idara is sifting out and based on true merit, how they are doing that, I think then only that particular position should be filled in. Otherwise, it will become just a tick in the box, and we do not want that. I think no woman wants to be just a tick on the box and to be having a seat on the table and not being able to be a decision maker. Thank you, Habiba.
Absolutely. Just last one comment, Huma, on that. That's why I disagree with hiring inclusion batches and women batches just for the sake of it, or to meet state bank numbers. And we have not done it. We have not done it like that. And, I'm lucky to have bosses who understand that and also guide us accordingly. और अभी यही हम बात कर रहे थे कि जिस दिन आपने खवातीन को oppressed बना दिया कि खवातीन oppressed हैं इसलिए आप उनको इधर डाल दें, वो oppressed हैं इसलिए आप उनको promote कर दें, और उनको हमने क्योंकि एक certain number पे लेके आना है, उस दिन आपने उनके साथ मजीद ज्यादती कर.
Absolutely.
So that's something we should address.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very important thought, which should be kept with all what you're doing, all the initiatives that you are taking. So we are with Sana now, and Marim, you wanted to ask us something.
Meneka, Sana, please tell me whatever's in your heart. Just say it. I know you've been hearing a lot of this. Tell us a little bit from a perspective of the law and how, what's happening in our country. How do we look at differently abled, and how do we make it easy? Is it just one of the tick in the boxes? What is the law?
To really tell you what happened.
And also your work as an activist and as a champion and your challenges.
Please
Okay,
go ahead.
I'll just give a little background about myself to understand what the whole journey has been all about. I was not born into a wheelchair. I was in a car accident which left me paralyzed from the neck downwards, and as a result of that, I'm a quadriplegic wheelchair user. So, initially after my accident, I thought the biggest barrier that I was facing was in my own mental, in my mind, that I could accept that this new person that I had become, that one who was on a wheelchair, who couldn't eat, who couldn't move her hands, who couldn't walk, who couldn't, even scratch her own nose if it felt itchy. So, for the longest time, I was just bedridden, depressed, miserable, just stuck in that vicious cycle of grief. We are a resilient lot. Huma knows my mother. We are strong women in our family. So, with the love and support of my family, my friends, I did, Yes, they didn't let me, I had forgotten the person that I was. That Sana died for me in that accident. But for family, I was still there. I was the same Sana. So, because we live in a society, and I was part of that society. I was born with the same biases, the same prejudices, and I was looking at myself as a cripple, as a disabled person who couldn't walk, who was good for nothing. So, but my family changed that for me. They reminded me that I was the same Sana as before. And, it was high time that I started living. Okay, so, I geared up. I was like, okay, enough with the moaning and groaning and crying. Come on, let's start living my life. So, I went out of my own house and I said, the first thing, what should we do? Let's go out and eat. The biggest shock for me was that I thought the biggest obstacle was that me accepting my own self. But when I went out, the world was totally different. It was a world that was not ready to accept me. It was a world that was not made for wheelchair users. So, that really hit me bad. I used to go out, used to come back. I used to be depressed by the glares and the stares and the whispers that people used to, they used to look at me and start whispering, or they'd come up to my family members and say, "Kya hua tha? Allah maaf kare, tauba, tauba, tauba. Namazein padhti hain, aap namaz pada karen." The usual. So, one day I was just sitting and I was like, oh my God, I just keep complaining and complaining and I'm not doing anything about it. I'm no better than the state. I'm no better than the people who I complain about. So what should I do? So that is when I started, I started looking up into accessibility laws and regulations. I engaged with a civil advocacy law firm, and my lawyer and me, we sent letters everywhere. And DHA, every building society in every week, you should have ramps. That is a basic necessity, and it is in our building codes as well. So it's not as if we are asking for a favor. So anyway, nothing came out of it. We used to get replies, but those were all sweet words and, nothing concrete. So then we thought, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to file a petition now. So we filed a petition in the High Court for just, it was a very simple petition. Just get the already existing law implemented. That law mandated for commercial and public buildings to have a ramp and a disabled toilet. For 2 years, we were shuffled between 3 courtrooms and nothing came out of it. And eventually our case was clubbed together with another petition, and it was dismissed because there was a Supreme Court judgment which had a very broad judgment that if any PWD has any grievance, the doors of the court are open for them and they can come, as if it's really easy. Okay, so anyway, we were not in the mood to give up, obviously. We filed another petition, and in that petition, we not only asked for what the law said, we went a few steps further and we said that people of all kinds of disabilities should be accommodated in every public and commercial building. That is their right, and you need to give them that. So luckily, we were very lucky that we were in the court of Justice Jawad Hassan. He went above and beyond what we asked for. He got us together with LDA and DHA. We sat down with them. We incorporated features into their building codes. Then he coordinated with the relevant social welfare department to work with us to formulate a law for Punjab that would cater for PWDs of all kinds. Since the 18th Amendment, this is a provincial matter, and every province has a law that caters for people with disabilities, but Punjab didn't have that. So we sat down with social welfare department. We had consultative sessions with people the relevant stakeholders, people with disabilities, people from the special education department, healthcare department, all the relevant people. We all sat down, everybody gave their proposals. And then in the end, with the proposals and recommendations and everything, we sat down and we prepared a bill, which fortunately just passed a few months ago, once this whole Punjab assembly fiasco had settled. So it is called the Punjab Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities Act. So that act not just protects people with disabilities, but it empowers them to live a dignified and independent life, a life that they can choose for themselves. Because a lot of time, people think that they know better about us. I have been to so many places where people tell me how I should drive my wheelchair, how this ramp is just perfect for me. It's just me who doesn't get it. So it's, it's like I think Habiba was talking about
sometimes I
mindset.
see the ramp at 45 degrees and I'm like, how does a person do that?
Oh, because, they need the ramp. Like you talked about a tick in the box, that ramp is a tick in the box. For them, they're like, oh, look, we are so inclusive. We are so woke. We made a ramp, not realizing that ramp is a bloody death trap. That's not for any person. So, it's going to change time to completely change the mindset. But I'm, being the positive person that I am, that at least that conversation has started. That mindset has started to transform. It was not like this before. 10 years ago, if I used to go out, I used to be met with a lot of stares. Nobody would come up to help me. Nobody would even bother to hold the door open for me, But now I go out, I can see that people are different. Their attitude
has changed.
Are changing. And I see a lot of other PWDs about as well, which is very heartening. It wasn't like that before. So, at least the conversation has started. At least the journey to accessibility, to inclusion, to diversity has started. And, with a law in place, that law may not be perfect. No law is. But, at least you have a legal leg to stand on. In that law, we wanted a lot of things, incorporate a lot of things, but obviously they didn't let us. But
one step at a time.
A few things are really close to my heart, like special education. I want school education, mainstream school institutes to, there should not be this discrimination between special children and normal children. Children are children, unless somebody has a really severe disability. And, for us, we assume like a hearing impairment or, like a visual impairment or like an intellectual disability. For us, they're all the same, but it's not the same way. A person with the same level of injury as me has totally different, symptoms or whatever you may call it. Exactly. So no disability is the same. So there's like different grades to it. So we need to be educated about that. And how can you be educated? By, just simple holding awareness seminars. One of the best favorite things of mine, activities of mine, is to go to school children and talk about disability awareness. Because, if you inculcate the values of empathy, kindness, tolerance, acceptance to young
generosity, absolutely.
These children are the future. These children are the society that we will become. So we need to empathize, inculcate these values in them. And it comes down to us as individuals, like I think Sarah and Habiba both talked about it, instead of grandstanding and instead of like holding grand events, even small acts of kindness, of, day-to-day activities, which could make, help somebody or teach your child how to be nice and kind, we need to teach these values, and these are small things. And if you teach them at a young age, they are going to go a long way to make us a very nice, tolerant, accepting society. And like in commercial,
an inclusive society. I think it's not just being inclusive as a society, but I think, like I said, I'm sure Sarah and Habiba, as inclusive leaders, it's like, how are you creating that culture of trust where people are not just, have been hired and employed, but they are also being included into the day-to-day decisions and day-to-day workforce.
What is very heartening to learn from what Sana is saying is that we have started that journey. We might be a long way to be there.
It might be just a dent in the big armor, because we do like to be ostriches at sometimes. We don't want to accept what's happening. I mean, I know कि senior citizens के लिए अभी बहुत recently ये सारी सहूलियतें पैदा हुई हैं, तो हम सब जो है ना बहुत अनोखे हैं compared to them, because बूढ़े तो सब होते हैं, right? हम फिर भी खवातीन और differently abled हैं, तो हमारी बारी भी आएगी. So,
we're disruptors. हमने थोड़ा उनका status quo disrupt तो किया. So, you know,
Definitely.
we can pat
Absolutely.
ourselves on the back for that. कि हमने conversation start करवाइए.
So, Sana, I want to add to, take away from, to your point of, educating or just making even children or people around us aware. When we talk about unconscious biases, we say first we need to identify with our own biases. We need to be aware, but we cannot be aware till we don't meet people who are different to us. So hum, as women, meeting, maybe talking and communicating with men or from people from different cultures, different provinces, different, socioeconomic classes, religions, absolutely, and who are differently able, then only we will understand the kind of in-group biases that we have, due to which we cannot know, okay, oh my God, हमसे भी डिफरेंट कोई सोचता है, उसको ये और तकलीफ भी हो सकती है और हम तसव्वुर ही नहीं कर सकते थे, और जरूरी नहीं है कि नीयत खराब हो, बस हमें कभी मौका ही नहीं मिला. So here I think as people who are in positions to make, they should create, and I think PepsiCo is doing that, and sensitizing the people, the audience, no matter how much of a captive audience you have. And so now you're doing it on the level of law, so you're dealing with some tough guns.
And not only law, I think what Sana is doing is that she's going to children to schools, and she's actually, her circle of influence has become really vast in the last couple of years. That's what I've been saying. So she's growing, her influence is growing. She's a real change agent as far as I see her.
And you need a lot of courage for this. So even if you are going through this and experiencing this, even as an ally and advocate, I think there is so much responsibility, and we thank you for being that change agent.
I want to ask, I think Sarah wanted to say something.
Yes, Sarah, do you want to add to this conversation before we just quickly wrap up? I'll bring it to every one of you.
Oh, no, I was just going to tell you that I have to move to another call, but I just want
to
go ahead.
Sarah, thank you so much. And we hope that we can all help you and we join in to make, because there's already somebody who's maybe a little ahead of the curve, and they can help to grow that momentum and take everybody else along with them. So we can only see multinationals.
It's so true. And I was just going to say, we have a disability program called Kabil, and we were going to go live with it. And one of my colleagues just wrote saying, we should take some lessons from Faysal Bank before we proceed. So Habiba will be reaching out to you very soon.
Do that.
But it's been a great
lovely to connect.
It's been great getting to know all of you, Sana. You've been so inspiring. Thank you so much. I was having a very crappy day, but hearing you kind of really gave me a lot to think about. Thank you so much. I look forward to connecting with you separately, all of you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for joining us. And we will be just wrapping up. We just wanted to let our audience know that there is this that goes on there. And if the best way to do this is to get out of your comfort zone, get to know people who are different to you, get to know people who are not like you, so that you understand what are their concerns and issues, that we can become change agents. We can become allies and advocates. We all need to have the courage to do that. So best of luck. Thank you, Habiba. Thank you, Sana. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone. What a great audience we have.